we've seen a little bit of Jane is what exactly we're going to get out of Cougar. We have almost no intel on this guy at all, which is completely unheard of at the Contenders level typically. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, I'm assuming we're going to see some brig out of him, maybe a little bit more hit scan, but I'm assuming we might even see Jane on that as well.
I'm excited. And we're going into our first map of Busan, and this is new to this Contender season. There's all kinds of new map rotations, and this has thrown some people for a loop who are always used to King's Row, always used to Lijiang Tower, which of course that's in here. But now as the clock unwinds, we've got Isurus Gaming coming out with the dive, the triple support, single DPS of Jane on the McCree, the LFTOWL coming out with the goats, but the Zen version of it.
Yeah, so this should be LFTOWL's to take here. I mean, they're running goats into a Protect the McCree. Protect the McCree gets run over by goats. This should be an easy fight.
And you can see both teams just focusing on that middle map control. We got Fasty as the Rhine, and you don't want to get too close to him. Isurus, they have this dive, and they want to reach that backline. But when your backline has 3 supports, and you're able to disengage with that Lucio speed boost, Mirror's very high charge right now is already going to get a double kill. Finishes off the third of Cougar, and you called it exactly right here. It's LFTOWL, get that first cap.
Yeah, typically what you're going to see is a team like this allow their Zen to just pop off with damage. You can say Ole, he's already at 84% towards his ult charge. Maurice was able to pop off with that damage boost as well. So across the board, LFTOWL in a really, really solid position. Isurus now forced to change over as well. They have the setup onto Ravage. He's probably going to go down. I mean, this is just easy pickings for LFTOWL until Isurus can get their feet underneath them once again. They have to make sure that they regain their footing here. And again, it's going to take some time because LFTOWL, they're going to have some ults in their pockets right now as well to be able to start pulling out and maintain this hold that they have.
Yeah, they can take a lot of damage now. Isurus back with the Zen goes mirroring this, but it's the Graviton from Isurus that starts things off. He thought they were on the other side of the wall, but Isurus having Kaizak, they just sped away from that engagement, and now they're going to go again. DDX having that Transcendence and the rally available from Leviathan, and both teams just trying to dwindle their health pools down, but this is the issue with goats. These fights will last forever due to the healing power of these supports, and now LFTOWL have taken that momentum and will carry it through.
This is effectively better too, right? Because, I mean, yes, they don't get the kills off of Muri's ultimate, but they're able to take more time off the clock before effectively getting those kills and allow Muri to even get that ult charge as well.
Self-destruct just to zone a little bit off, and Isurus have been stuck in their spawn for quite some time. It's almost 70%, looking for LFTOWL, have another Graviton they're working with.
Oh, come on.
Jane, oh, the shatter, they didn't expect it. Oh, but the counter pin, we like to see that, and there's the Transcendence from both teams, try and nullify and create some space and keep their teams alive, and now another Graviton thrown here from Muris this time, and Jane. So this has been quite a bonanza, but LFTOWL, they will win yet another fight, and that 85% here, it's safe to say that they probably have won this.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really any big tide turners that you would like to see in this particular situation. In fact, one of the things that they had at their disposal was that Lucio ult, that sound barrier that was coming up, but, you know, they just wind up losing the sound barrier completely because he just dropped out of the game. He's going to come back in. Now they're really just kind of looking at one opportunity, which is going to be the Earth Shatter. And given how protected and how set up LFT has been throughout this entire duration of this match, I don't see Fasty giving up a massive, massive play right off the bat here to allow for them to retake. And even when they do, they're still working I mean, it's a really big uphill battle from here on out for them if they're even able to switch it over. I think this is a 100-0 right out of the gate for LFT starting things off here on Busan.
And they tried, I mean, it just came out with the Protect the McCree comp, and they had to quickly switch, so they were already at the ultimate disadvantage to start. And then we saw some mistakes from LFTOWL, you know, that Graviton that was whiffed through the wall, and Isurus were able to disengage, but I feel like Isurus haven't been controlling their engages quite well. They have the Lucio, and they have the goats, and they're not kind of forcing themselves in, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that really caught them off was the fact that they ran that McCree strat, you know, running Brig McCree, Protect the McCree, whatever you want to call it. They ran that dive setup, I would say almost knowing that Goats was coming. So they really kind of didn't really give themselves a good start right off the bat. I mean, something that we've seen a lot with this region over the last, I would say, couple of weeks, and certainly once we started on Thursday, You know, behind the scenes, there's been a lot more usage of goats, especially since the World Cup stages, where we saw a lot more of that. And in particular, I would say the Zen version of the goats. And Brazil, as a country, and I would say South America, then in turn as a region, really caught on to that Zen goat style. They like how aggressive it can wind up being and how quick and punchy it is. I mean, that's typically been this region's go-to. I mean, this has been their MO, is just they like that quickness, they like that punchiness, they like the ability to really kind of be lethal at all times. And if you're going to run a 3-3, that's the way to do it. That's the exact possible way I think that you could probably pull that off in any way. That's going to be it. But, you know, given that has kind of hit its stride a little bit, and we were seeing a lot more teams pulling that out, and I think over the course of the next couple of weeks, we're going to see even more of it, that, you know, you have to expect things like that. You have to expect that this particular team is going to come out with it, especially on this particular map. So you got to make sure that out of the gate, you're giving yourself the best opportunity. They didn't. Then it's just a question of how can we get back in here? And they had a good opportunity dodging Muri's Graviton Surge, but the re-entry was a little bit lackluster. It was a little slow, a little lethargic. So coming back into the game, though.
And it's 95 and 97% growing, and Isurus, you have to quickly get back. Oh, at least someone was able to touch as we switch the camera over. You can see Isurus want to have one more fight, but they got pushed off. Overtime dwindling away. LFTOWL take the first win. And hey, this was a team that I just wasn't sure about. A mix of Pain Gaming, a mix of Black Dragons, and both these teams making playoffs last season. All capable players, but you're going against Isurus, who were the second place, always been a top 2 team in this region. And you can kind of see the difference that losing those 2 DPS players have made. Maybe less in terms of the GOAT's composition and its execution, but their synergy as a team and decision-making as a team.
So my question here for Isurus, I mean, we know that Jane can have these kind of off picks, but does one of those involve a Doomfist, or will, you know, someone else be able to play a Doomfist to be able to deal with a GOAT style strategy or a DOT style strategy? We've even seen some opportunities where teams have gone and played single DPS with a Winston triple tank. I mean, here on the LFT, we're even seeing GOATs, but with Fasti instead on the Winston.
Oh geez, Fasti on the Winston, and this is interesting. It's a dive, and you want to use Fasti's bubble to isolate the healers, make it so they can heal their front line, and try and separate the GOAT's comp. Exactly what they're doing now is running after the rest, and Isurus has been on your kill feed time and time again, and this has been a player that stood out for not only his hero choices last season, but now he's been playing a fantastic Zarya this series.
I think, honestly, between Muri's and Ule, I think those are the 2 guys that I'm really looking at in terms of getting things started off on the right foot for this team LFT. It's both times it's been those 2.
Oh, we'll see. Fasti jumps in, drops the bubble, and makes it already hard. LFT now splitting up the forces of Isurus, and they've already gotten the first, second, and third picks, so Isurus disengaging again, and this is quite a different look from what we've seen last season of Isurus. They were the powerhouse, and now I'd be surprised if they get any percentage points on this control map.
Yeah, this is looking like it's shaping up to be pretty much the same situation we saw on that first round. Starting things off with a 100-0, but now Graviton opportunity for Muri's. Can he get this one and actually land it here?
Oh, they might try and win this fight without it. They use the Primal Rage and put Isurus all the way back towards their spawn, and they just leave Fasti to be angry in his corner all by himself, and Fasti tries to hold this choke, and now they're set up here for the Graviton. You see they're coming in, and Muri's is looking down the barrel, but the Shatter lands down. The Transcendence tries to make up for it, and finally Muri's pulls the trigger on the Graviton. Isurus do manage to keep healed up thanks to DDX's Transcendence. Now Isurus want to respond with their own Graviton. It is launched, but the self-destruct from LFT will zone this one out. It's been chaos, and LFT are just profiting from all of this.
This has been some of the best cerebral play from a team in South America that I've seen outside of BGH. LFTOWL has had a particular answer for every single thing that has been thrown at them, and I think that they're going to be able to pull this fight out yet again, and it's just one of those long ones too where they're just taking time off the clock. I mean, think about the way that this fight started. Ravage opening things up with that massive opportunity because Fasti's not on that Reinhardt. He goes down with a big Earth Shatter, and then Ule was actually hiding. Let him go for it, had that answer, but a quick turnaround possibly here in the making for Isurus.
That's great, and 100% charged Jane is going to have a Graviton for the next fight as well, and What's nice about the dive here from LFT is that they could have rotated towards the point, kind of rotate towards the high ground because they have that mobility. Isurus have been stuck at the choke and have given up 96%. If they lose this fight, they will lose Busan. They'll have to make up for it in the next match.
They have some clearance, and they have some headroom here if they jump in here, but it's all going to be onto this. Is it going to be Jane coming through with a massive graviton that could get the job done? They already pulled out his ult as well. Trans is down.
It's grab versus grab. Whose grab is it anyway? Who knows? But Beast comes out on top of the triple self-destruct. This is how Isurus start to climb back. It needs to be fight after fight, but they've exhausted so many ultimates in that last one, but so did LFTOWL. Besides the self-destruct and rally, this next fight will be important.
Ravage with yet another opportunity, but Fasty this time is recognizing this, and he's going to go on to Reinhardt. I think this is a good play from them to be able to hopefully deny this Earthshatter that's going to come out, but can he get in the way of it?
Yeah, the shatters, self-destruct gets thrown out from Agon right towards the back. It should catch someone. Somehow is shielded, but Fasty already gets a double kill. If Isurus loses, they will lose Busan. They're trying to run away. It is now, looks like trades going back and forth, but LFTOWL in the clear number advantage as they chase the last remaining kills. Isurus just want to stall this one out for a reinforcements, but that will be it. The flip goes through. Can Isurus speed back towards the point? Someone was there to touch, but I don't think Isurus will be able to get out of this choke, not with Leviathan standing in your way. Overtime dwindling away, and Isurus, they're just out of numbers and out of hope.
And so far, what we've seen from this is really just an improvement from LFT in terms of those tank-style compositions. This is where they're really looking their best. They're going to be able to clean this one up in time, and I think going forward, this is a real scare for Isurus, because as we get over to these escort-style maps, going over to a hybrid-style map, those are the maps that I'm going to be really fearful if I'm Isurus, because LFT looks incredibly strong on their tank compositions, and when they are the superior team with the tank setups, those two types of maps and even control to some degree, depending on the map, the exact map and which round of that map that we're seeing, that's going to be a huge problem. I mean, tank controls space right now, so having this 3-3 setup, this Zen style, especially with a guy like Olay playing that Zenyatta role, I think this is a big boon to LFTOWL, and a big reason why I actually think that this season is their season to look a lot better than what we've seen in the past.
It's just the Fasties dive with the Winston, I think gave them a huge advantage of Isurus didn't know how to really counter that. The Winston comes in, separates your supports and your front line, and that bubble blocks the healing as well, so it kind of really threw Isurus for a loop, because it really forces your decision making in a close quarters in a high pressure situation, where we already saw Isurus decision making was lacking already in the first map. But I think at least they got percentage points on the board, and it started to get close, and this is Isurus warming up in this series, I think.
Yeah, and they were also really creative with some of their engages as well. I mean, think back to how they engaged some of these fights. And yes, some of them were a little bit vanilla. As you look at the replays, you can see how, in some cases, they were just normal setups where you just hide your Zarya, hold them around a corner, and drop a grab or something like that. Yes, there were instances where that was the case. But especially on their reentries on that second round, I think that's where we saw that creativity come into play. And when you have this type of composition, the one thing that will set you apart from another team is the creativity, is the different kind of looks that we get out of them to catch another team off guard. Because when you're battling in these situations, you have to put yourself in a position where you can actually gain the upper hand. It's very difficult to do that in a 3-3 versus 3-3 style. So I think that is another big reason why we're seeing LFTOWL look so good. We've seen it a couple of times where they have different entry points where they gain the low ground, or where they gain the high ground rather, or they give up the high ground to take an approach on the low ground to pull a team off, and then they could quickly just readjust their positioning and take advantage of possibly a mistake that came out from Isurus Gaming. So again, that creativity, the rotational adjustments that we see, and the innovation that's coming out of LFTOWL is why I'm so impressed, particularly with this 3-3 style. And again, as we mentioned, Isurus Gaming, we're still not sure exactly what we can expect of these DPS players. And when you're looking to shut down a GOAT style composition, you need your DPS to be on point. You need the Sombra and you need the Doomfist, and you have to have them both, or else it's not going to be as consistent as what you would get with those two. I mean, if you have something like Pharah or a Junkrat, you can maybe get that to work, but Doomfist Sombra has to be the way that you do it consistently, and we just haven't seen that yet from Isurus.
And there's a certain patience about LFTOWL that we've seen, especially from Mures with his Gravitons. Like when they were coming through the choke and we were waiting, okay, when's this Graviton going to come out? And they try to win these fights without ultimates and, in fact, end up throwing all of them in there. So you got to keep your eye on Mures. He seems to be that guy that either pops off or the one that makes these major mistakes. And we saw when he threw a Graviton at a wall and then nothing happened. Thankfully, they had kind of already were rolling that map. And then there was when Isurus were coming through the choke and they were starting to kind of separate the players, and Mures was really too patient on that Graviton, but he was the one who was always high energy and the one just wiping the floor with everybody. So Mures is going to be the one I keep my eye on how he's going to be playing the rest of these maps.
And in a lot of these fights where things, where we see like these long duration battles, these brawls that occur, a lot of times we do see LFT coming out ahead, which is certainly a product of the fact that they're coming out ahead of a lot of these fights, but they have to make sure that they know when to disengage and when to pull back and when to set back up, because we did see them really kind of overextend a little bit into one fight, and that gave the opening for Isurus to come in and actually score their first points on the board in that second round on the first map of Busan. So I think, again, just making sure that they stay really cognizant of where they need to be and when is a good time to make sure that they can kind of get everybody back together, just kind of collate, just kind of get back together onto the point, get everybody set up on high ground. Like all these things need to come into play. If you're allowing a team to just kind of like trickle back in from their spawn, you're allowing a team to come back through and, kind of poke and prod at you a little bit, their re-engage is going to be a lot more potent than if you were set up the way that you would like to be. So on a map like Numbani, which we're heading to next, that's something that I'm looking forward to, because with these compositions that we're going to be seeing out of these teams, it's going to be a lot of aggression. There might be some spawn camp opportunities. I mean, that's what you get out of a 3-3 style. That's what you get out of dive looks that we could potentially see as well. So that kind of thing, again, know when you're overextending, know when to disengage on a fight that you did win. So I would say that was the main thing that I think I would look at if I was LFT, because everything else was looking great.
I'm wondering how Numbani's going to go. This is Isurus's choice of map, and we can maybe ponder on why they did so. But I feel like Numbani will be maybe goats for the defense, but there's quite a bit of space that you have to go from the middle street all the way to the point, where the major issue with goats is kind of getting from point A to point B, because you're a close range composition that only benefit close range. And when you're in battle, you have limited cooldowns, so you need the battles to go quickly in your favor. So I don't know if Numbani will favor LFTOWL, and maybe this is a chance for Isurus to flex their DPS muscles and flex their mechanical skill on something other than goats.
So if I'm looking at Numbani, I would say my approach wouldn't actually be goats. Maybe on the attack, I would look for that. But I think the setup that I would potentially go for, if my roster can produce results with it, is going to be Sombra Genji. And the reason why I say that is because it has the ability to contest high ground. It has the ability to be, pack that punch that South America is always looking for. You have the ability to, play your Genjis that have a lot of experience on this character. I mean, between Genji, things like Genji, things like Reaper, things like Lucio, those are the characters that you saw a lot in the past historically in this region. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some really proficient Genji start popping up, because we didn't get to see a lot of that in the last season, because the meta was a little bit different. I would say that now that we've seen the empowerment of Sombra and the enabling of the Genji with the EMP and some of the hacks that can come out as well, I would go for the Sombra Genji here on Numbani, especially towards point A, and then maybe swap things up for a point B or point C approach, where especially towards point C, the later you get into the map, the more I think Goats is favored, the more you're going to see that Zen style Goats composition coming out. But until then, I'm expecting Genji, I'm expecting Sombra.
Well, you're half right as we go into Numbani. See, this is maybe a meme comp. Ravage is usually tank, so we'll let them decide before we get into it. But Sombra Genji, that's a ultimates that have big finishers, the EMP, the blade, it's free kills. The issue is not, I don't know, what DPS are we going to see? You're expecting Sombra Genji. You could see a soldier. Hey, we've seen everything from Orisa Torbjorn on this map because of its setup around the point. The high ground favors this defense. Very hard to attack on this map. You have your choice of going through Main Street, where you're exposed for quite some time in the line of sight of the defense, or you can go through the top or the bottom hallway, where maybe that could favor heroes in more close range without the height ceiling like a Pharah or something like that. So it will be Isurus on the attack to start, and they will be floating over some dive. The issue is what DPS, and it seems like Jane's bringing out the soldier.
Yeah, interesting that he is bringing this out, especially with this dive composition. I mean, they're going essentially with a protected McCree strat, but with a soldier instead. And given the meta and where soldier stands, it's interesting to see this because McCree would be a little bit more consistent, I think, especially with the spike damage that you get. But if Jane gets control of this high ground and they don't de-nest him, Cougar, DDX, those guys are going to be able to certainly keep Jane alive so he can pack that punch that they need from him. But again, look for Muri's on this pick of the Doomfist to maybe just displace them right by himself. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, you're being a little bit too forward and having issues with the dive going through such a small hallway like this. That's kind of the issue I was talking about, of going through these hallways limits your ceiling height, so you won't be able to dive out of situations as well. So they might consider going through Main Street as they are now, but now they'll be in line of sight of rockets from Leviathan, so kind of giving him free ult charge and taking some poke before they actually engage.
This is just the way that they want to enter this point is just beautiful for Leviathan and Muri's. This is going to be an easy way for them to clean this up over and over and over again. As long as they go for this and they don't make big plays, Muri's is just going to clean this up. Leviathan is going to be able to easily just poke and prod at them, make sure that they're very weak. They need to switch something up, whether it be Jane over to the McCree or just a different approach in general. I mean, Isurus not looking good right now, and with this approach, they're just gonna feed essentially over and over. They have to switch something here.
They're trying to split push of pushing their dive tanks down the middle and then having Cougar go in the top right hallway, but he's gotten punched twice by Muri's the same exact way. Now through all this poke damage, Leviathan has a barrage, so if they go through mid, they're gonna have to rely on Beast's awareness to try and matrix that or throw the mech in and sacrifice.
All right, well, we already see Kaizak actually picking up the kill on Muri's. He actually missed his punch there, and that put him in a bad position, and they capitalized. Now they have to do more of that capitalizing because they have the 6v5 advantage. However, still, Leviathan having that barrage ready to unleash it.
It gets mostly Matrix, so great job by Beast, though he's going to lose the mech in this case, but you trade a mech for an ultimate. Now, it is Aegon, I think, that got nanoed there for some reason, and now he has a self-destruct. He's going to keep it, obviously, wants to maybe self-destruct once Isurus do get a good push in to clear some space, and the defense have a Mercy. That's something we haven't seen in quite a while, but this will allow him to resurrect and get their members back quickly.
I could be horribly mistaken here, Lemon, but I do believe they nanoed Leviathan and then also gave him the barrier from Fasty as well. I could be
glowy stuff.
Horrifically mistaken, but I'm pretty sure that's what I did see. But anyways, going up the same approach though, same thing from Isurus Gaming.
Oh, interesting. You got the tag visor now, and it's going right towards the bag, but now here's the dive from Aegon to try and matrix some of this damage, and Jamie's not getting a ton of healing. The barrier is dropped just in time there from Kaizak, and Isurus is down to the last minute. They're using a ton of ultimates. This needs to be the do or die situation.
Oh, that barrage was ready, but he gets taken out, and they don't have... I don't believe they have the res at the moment. Now they're going to go for it. They do indeed have it, so Leviathan is going to just be right back up, and they're still stuck in that same corridor.
Huge barrage from Leviathan there at the bag. That's big. And Isurus don't have a ton of members. They have just taken out Olay and Leviathan. So maybe this is a chance for Isurus. And it's got to be you go in or you don't. It's 30 seconds. You have to pick if you're engaging this or not. And it looks like because they've killed Pizza Lover, this has given them a winnable situation. There's only really 3 people from Isurus alive. LFTOWL, they realize that, and they're going to engage the point with the self-destruct.
If this isn't the exact same situation we saw on Busan, that little kind of trickle-in situation, now we'll see if they can contest this, maybe get some points, or maybe see if they can actually reconvene and get control of this point again. They are cleaning up a little bit. Fasty's back into the fight as well.
Oh, one last engage here for Isurus. It's now in overtime. They can't afford anything. Cougar now has been popping off, dealing with Fasty. No more tanks from LFTOWL. A bit of a sleep from Ravage, but Isurus took them quite a while to get this point.
Now going forward, they're going to need to get their respawns going as well as they switch Jane over. And you can see that they're going to go for this composition that we saw from LFTOWL actually initially, where they do run this GOAT style, but it's with the Winston. And still obviously involving the Zen. And as I said before, as you approach closer and closer to the end of the map, this style is going to be better and better and better. So it's not surprising to see this already.
Yeah, LFTOWL, they want to trigger that Transcendence from DDX, and they'll try and... Looks like Ravage wants to protect his supports here with the Primal. It seems that LFTOWL just trying to get their position here onto the card, and there's Fasty going towards the back. He has the Primal Rage, and there it is, trying to slap some people off the map. Misses the juggle, and he's going to go in again, and he does get the trigger of the Transcendence off of DDX.
Now it's going to be Isurus Gaming actually looking quite solid. They're able to win. They're able to string together 2 fights in a row. That's something that they really struggled with. I mean, they struggled with even just having 1 fight in their last map, but now looking a little bit more consistent in the last couple of minutes here. Question is, at least in my opinion, how consistent are they going to look once they start generating these ultimates? As soon as LFTOWL actually starts generating some of their own, and we can start seeing these battles get a little bit more closely relative. I mean, we can see these teams start getting neck and neck in terms of what they're bringing to the table in each and every single one of these brawls. So Isurus Gaming, certainly, yes, they are on top. They had the setup there as well. They were very aggressive. They are able to take this fight. But looking forward, is LFTOWL going to be able to get everything going for themselves again? Ulay is going to have a Transcendence to get a possible reset for his team. And I think that what that really brings to the table more than anything else is the opportunity to reset tempo. Because once they reset tempo, Ulay can start getting into position, and he can start dishing out that damage that we saw him pulling out in that first map on Busan as well. So once we see the Transcendence out, I think we're going to see a big turnaround where LFTOWL is able to regain control of this map. We'll have to see, though, is it going to be before or after we do see that second point on the board coming through for Isurus Gaming? I do believe it's going to be after. I think Isurus is going to be able to get the second point at the very least.
We'll have to see. Isurus, or I think it was Pizza Lover that disconnected for LFTOWL. So while we try and get our player back into the lobby, we're going to send it over to a quick break. But when we get back, we're going to be finishing up Numbani. Welcome back, everybody. Isurus Gaming versus LFTOWL. And unfortunately, Pizza Lover got disconnected so bad. We've been waiting for him to just plug in his little modem there, but it looks like it's been taking too long. So Isurus and LFTOWL will be playing 6v5 for the remainder of Numbani until we can get him back.
Yeah, unfortunately, they had that countdown, and we're getting information now that he had a blackout. So unfortunately, you know, not having any power or internet or whatever that blackout actually is pertaining to, yeah, that's going to prevent you from being able to play. And unfortunately for LFT, it's going to prevent them from being able to defend this. It seems like, although we'll have to see if they can maybe find some way to trounce Isurus Gaming, who have all 6 of their players. It's just going to be very difficult here.
This could still be a good match because LFTOWL, they have the spawn advantage being on the defense. Isurus just kind of blew a really important Graviton into a transcending Zenyatta of Olay. So Isurus, it's not over yet. They got 2 minutes and still got to finish the map.
I mean, you are missing out on a very, very important piece of the puzzle, not having that shot caller, that main support in for your team. That really kind of messes up communication behind the scenes as well.
And the shatter slams down. Ravage gets Agon out of mech, and Isurus is just going to barely survive. And with that, Isurus will complete Numbani with a minute 26 time bank.
And remember back, too, I mean, Isurus was staring down the barrel of not being able to get that first point, that first objective at all. So to see them able to finish this one out, close down the map, and have a little bit of extra time in their time bank as well, that's big. And it's bad news for LFT, who let that go through. And unfortunately for them, maybe the reasoning was because they didn't have that player, and they will continue to not have that player until he can come back. Otherwise, they have to forfeit this match. There is no pausing left for them in the bank. So speaking of banks, I mean, 126, that's a workable time for Isurus. LFT now having to face Isurus, who have that full 6 stack now with 5 players of their own. Again, they don't have that kind of main support shot caller role filled. So now things have to adjust. They have to adjust on the fly here. And this is going to be a very interesting way to try to go about this, because I mean, how do you deal with this? How do you deal with not having a Lucio? All of a sudden now you can't realistically run a Goats comp. Yeah, I mean, you're not going to be able to run that Goats comp. So I think the best way to do it is to just be as lethal as possible. And he's back. Okay, so this is perfect for them. They can recover from this. 126, again, great time for Isurus. That's workable, like I said, but it's not the best time, and LFT can outpace that. Now we'll have to see if Pizza Lover can maintain his connection long enough for them to pull this one out.
At least you can go Lucio, where it doesn't matter if, you know, you can see straight or if you can shoot straight. You just gotta stay speed, stay healing, press E a few times, and hope that team can keep you alive or keep your team alive while your internet decides to come puzzle. So, LFTOWL on the attack. They bring out the dive, triple support, and Isurus, so to protect the soldier comm. This is exactly what Isurus are running, except they're running DDX on the offense.
And they're going to have Fastia. This is that same soldier approach we saw from Isurus. Mirror's up top. They don't have that answer of the Doomfist available, so it's just soldier v soldier, and it's Isurus that's taking the downfall first as they've impacted the Diva.
And it's been a disconnect between Ravage and Beast. You saw Beast go in for a dive. Ravage wasn't there, so the mech was lost. Now Beast is back in the mech, so now 6v6 this time, and LFTOWL start to rotate around this pillar area to try to pressure the point. Pizza Lover with a double kill, or I mean onto Beast. They trade that with a Winston kill, so Ravage is trying to just work towards that Primal Rage. He's gonna get it, and this is a perfect spot to just boop everybody off the map. He's trying to juggle all of them, but decides to get out before dropping too low.
Coming away from this, though, we're going to see the battling visors, the dueling visors, and these Divas really need to step their game up to make sure that they can deny one of those visors, because the winner of that duel is going to come out with a team fight victory, in my opinion. That could unlock the point here for LFT if they're actually the ones to come out ahead.
Oh, it's Tag Visor versus Tag Visor. You're saying like a right click there pretty early, but it's the Tag Visor from Jane that comes out first. Mirrors goes second. Who is going to shoot each other down? But Pillar has been providing some defense here, and Isurus are going to use their sound barrier as they try to drop in now, try to prevent the subjective time from building for LFTOWL. Agon has that self-destruct, and once that bubble is down, he will be using it to try and clear this point and trying to win without it. Sends it up into the air, says a little hello. It does clear some space for LFTOWL, but is down to the last 2 minutes.
They just don't have anybody left to contest Jane at all, and he's going to be able to clean up Olay there as well. And time is dwindling now for LFT. And again, just that insulated Soldier 76 who is left almost uncontested as they cannot approach him. They can't go across the point to actually contest him. So it's very difficult for them to get in the Soldier 76 face without really kind of putting some hurt onto their tank line, as they will get opened up, maybe slept as well by DDX.
Well, Mures is going into the exact same spot. It's been always the duel between the two soldiers on the opposite sides. Oh, nice boop, and Ravage misses that one. The tanks, oh, what a sleep! Mures is down, and here's the jump now from Ravage, who keeps booping up. He's rotating from the high ground to the low ground, and now it is attack visor from Jane. It gets mostly Matrix there. Agon gets stunned, and now Jane is creating so much space and putting in so much damage into LFTOWL, who are trying to get onto this point. It doesn't seem to be successful yet, unless they lose Ravage now, and now it's the attack visor from Mures onto the high ground. It pushes Isurus into the tiny hallway, and this is enough pressure for LFTOWL to unlock this payload.
Oh, and they clean up. Kind of similar to what we saw from Isurus. Now, they have to go through this second and third stage, and Isurus had the benefit of being 6v5 for the last little section of it, and arguably, or possibly even inarguably, the hardest section of the map to get through, that last section, as it could be, you know, pretty difficult to get around that final corner. Now we'll see that swap coming through from both sides, going back over to the Zaryas as Mirius and Jane make those swaps, and we'll see what they can do with those, as Ravage is still on that Winston, whereas Fasty has the benefit of being able to get big Earthshatters off here potentially.
Potentially, and Isurus, they start, or sorry, with LFTOWL start their rally, and a Transcendence, a big investment here, and you see Ravage use the Primal to try and separate everybody, but it's LFTOWL that have stuck together, and through this investment of ultimates, I don't know about that jump, but they have won this fight and will move forward.
Yeah, you think they would maybe want to contest a little bit longer, but I think they know that they have the opportunity to go ahead and get back into the fight before this actually goes through. And they also don't want to give a full Winston HP bar worth of ultimate charge away as well. So flying off the side of the map may not be the worst idea, especially as they come back on the Rhine this time around to defend against Fasty's Earthshatter. That should be coming.
Oh, in 0.6 meters, they get onto it. Oh, self-destruct there from the back from Agon, and gets blocked off as Isurus. They try and get a position on this car, but they get shattered there from Fasty. And you got the barrier drop, so Isurus got two ultimates out of LFTOWL, and they will actually lose this fight, but they're probably happy with not having to use as much themselves.
I think the big thing there was just they didn't have Cougar's ult because he used it in the last one, and they didn't have that ability to kind of keep everybody up and also get that extra armor, which maybe would have given them a little bit more staying power. Now rounding this first corner is going to be LFT. They do have, we have a battling grab. We have both transes ready to go as well. So we saw before how LFT was really good in these sustained fights. Can they come out ahead again?
Oh, and it's Isurus that use their speed boost to get a start the engagement. They get caught into a grab. Equal grabs traded from both sides. The Transcendence triggered from both sides as well. So this was a fight that only ended up in LFTOWL's favor. You can see Isurus, they don't want to get staggered more. They're retreating towards the spawn, and Ravage almost has the shatter. He was not expecting that pin. What a finish from Fasty, who now has a free Earth Shatter to whatever victims from Isurus come out those doors.
Pretty easy to find a charge when you know exactly where they're going. Earth Shatter ready, no Ravage around to block it.
The self-destruct is going to get blocked, and Isurus just trying to buy some time for Ravage to get back with his own Earth Shatter. We'll see how this one goes, and it's slammed down, and it finds the tanks. Both Beast and down. Now Agon lives the self-destruct, and it should get some kills. Jane is down. LFTOWL have made this a 2-minute time bank, very similar to Isurus Gaming, despite having Pizza Lover disconnect mid-game.
Yeah, great setup there as well from Leviathan on the Brig. Threw out that stun onto Ravage. There was no blocking that Earth Shatter that came down. They were able to clean things up, and communication, the coordination from LFT, again showing that they are the superior team to Isurus with this 3-3 style composition. And when it comes down to it, when it gets later into this map, LFT are just going to look that much stronger because they have the edge in that department. First point, though, is going to be what decides it. So Isurus have to set themselves up, I think, in the best way possible to have a shot here. But they're going to continue this strategy of running this soldier up top onto the high ground. I think they're going to still see that Doomfist just running in on them. And the only reason why they were able to actually win out on that first point and unlock that checkpoint was because of a couple of, missed opportunities that came out from Muriz and Leviathan as well. I think now LFT, they've settled things a little bit. They're now controlling the tempo of the game again. I think Muriz is not going to make those same mistakes on the Doomfist where we see him dying off early because he winds up missing a stun or something like that. But Isurus are going to have to be a little bit more creative with the way that they approach. We saw an approach that went through lower that worked out for them because they were able to bait out the Doomfist. Are we going to see that, or are we going to see them just get pigeonholed by this high ground attempt that where they don't have time to make these mistakes? They have to figure things out early. They got basically 2 pushes here.
And Doomfist defense has worked out for LFTOWL. This is how they kept one-shotting Cougar coming through this hallway, and this is how Isurus, I think it was almost overtime that they had gotten the points, so Isurus really struggled their attack, but getting Jane in a good position against Leviathan's Pharah is going to be important.
All right, we see Muriz set up as well. They're going to engage up onto the high ground. Sleep Dart coming through as well.
Oh, Muriz, he finds the soldier. Chain is down, and he gets the D-Meg onto the Diva, it seems. And Muriz, he's always been the silly hero player, even from last season, bringing out the Reaper. He's the one who brings out the Mei, and of course he brings out the Doomfist.
Yeah, those off-meta picks. I don't even know if I would say off-meta even anymore. I mean, Reaper was pretty solid. Pharah's always been, pretty consistent. Mei's pretty solid on some maps too, but nonetheless, those off picks definitely going to be Muriz for sure playing those, as Leviathan going to be really, really solid on this Pharah and really supported as well. I mean, a lot of pocketing for this Pharah. When Leviathan gets that barrage up, you see, everything being utilized, all those resources allocated to him.
Nice concussive blast splits the tanks away from the rest, and Jane now from the Zarya, or from the soldier to the Zarya, knowing that. Oh.
Well,
I thought they had touched it. Unlucky. That's all you say about that. I really thought that they had touched it. Interesting. They must have gotten booped off just at the last second.
Well, the Doomfist did punch through, but I don't think he actually got like a shoulder onto anybody to boot them. I think they were so afraid of the Doomfist charge up noise, because you can obviously hear it, and it's one of the most clinching sounds that you can ever have in your eardrums, because that if you get hit by that as 4 of the 6 heroes that you are bringing to the table, I mean, outside of your tanks, everybody is food for Doomfist, right? In that composition that they bring out. So that is something that I wouldn't want to go outside of a nice comfortable room with a lot of help and great frontline tanks in front of me. So I don't necessarily blame them, but they definitely need to go out and get that point at least contested so they have a shot. Fortunately for them, I think the terror that they felt is what held them back there, and now LFT have an opportunity to get this first cap and take a second map in their favor, one step closer to taking their first win of the season. Can they do it right here, though? I mean, they're going for that same Soldier 76 approach. Isurus, again, they haven't shown that they have the ability to pull out the Doomfist or, any variation of that. We haven't even seen a Sombra, but they did look good with Jane set up, and again, very insulated. So they might be able to take off 2 minutes here and just draw this one out.
And we saw that Isurus had struggled on their attack in the first place. The first attack went into overtime, the second one they C9. So now LFTOWL, they just have to get the 33%, and they will be up 2-0 against Isurus. This was the team that got second place last season, so what a difference we've seen. And look at this, DDX down, Ravage down. Isurus now need to stay protected. They only have the Diva to mitigate any of the damage coming in, and that's going to be Beast, who's the next target of focus from LFTOWL's damage. As they now step onto the point, Isurus have to stall this one out. Beast tries to get out of this choke, but he will be DMAC'd, and just like that, LFTOWL, they take Numbani, and they will go up 2-0 in the series.
Yeah, one step closer for LFTOWL. While yes, they did lose a player, did get that map a little bit closer than it may have been had they had Pizza Lover in there throughout that match. But good thing he was able to come back, because he was the last piece of the puzzle that they needed to be able to make sure that they got that map in their favor. They can close it out. And again, that coordination that we saw with the Goats is exactly what I think really stood out for them. When we saw that soldier versus soldier duel, it wasn't as in favor of LFTOWL. So I'm looking forward to seeing what our analysts think. I mean, because honestly, 3-3, it looks like LFTOWL is the team to beat in this particular matchup.
And I agree. It's been a GOATS game, all in favor of LFTOWL. It's been forcing Isurus to mirror exactly what they're putting out. But LFTOWL, they practice this composition, and it's clear they're ready as a team to pull it off. Now, we're at the halftime. LFTOWL are up 2-0 in the series. Against Isurus Gaming, we're going to send it over to Katrina and friends for a halftime desk.
Oh man, I'm so much uglier than Katrina, but I'm going to try my best to step into her shoes. I am Bupasaurus here with Paul and Frito. We are going to go ahead and break down a little bit of GOATs to start with. We did have we had GOATs all over the place. The greatest of all time team composition. That is the triple tank, triple support. If you guys are not familiar. On Busan, we saw a lot of Winston. We saw a lot of Ryan. Frito, can you tell me what does Ryan add to GOATs? And then, Paul, why are you going to pick Winston into GOATs?
Well, with Reinhardt, I think you simply do more damage because Ryan's got scarier attack abilities. He's a bit better against hit scans as well. There was a small period where McCree was played and he just shot into his shield and then got ran over. He's better for that, I think, in the poke phases. But as long as you get more aggressive with the Rhine, you can get more damage out and you have a bigger shock and awe ultimate as well. I think you're a bit better defending, especially on, I believe it's called Mecha Base, where they got to come through a tight choke. Winston not very good at doing that. Ryan controls that space.
Well, and I guess when there's a little bit more high ground, Paul, that's when Winston's going to get a little better.
You're muted, by the way.
Man, I haven't done that in a while, but one of the reasons you bring that Winston is for that high ground control, but the way you can still win against a Reinhardt in even if you don't have high ground to abuse is by kiting them around a little bit. And that's what we saw on Mecha Base from LFTOWL. They did a better job of playing slow, letting the Reinhardt GOAT sort of just wear itself out, and then they jumped into the backline and found all the value they needed because Isurus wasn't using the Reinhardt GOATs to its full advantage for a lot of the time. They weren't getting aggressive, and we kind of saw that all series from them as well.
Well, let's talk about Numbani now. So we talked a little bit about Busan. We got a lot of GOATs in there. We're about to see probably a lot more GOATs. So the GOATs, let's just keep that under the back burner for now. Let's go to Numbani .8 attack. So Frito, when we were talking about this map, you were just talking about you could see the uncertainty in Isurus.
Definitely. I think across the board, every matchup, it seems that LFT is a step ahead, where they either understand the meta or understand the map better. They're on the defense running the Pharmacy Doomfist on the defense, which I haven't seen too much in really any region, but you can just see how devastating it is up against chokes. You're expecting a player like Jane to play soldier, hopefully shoot the Pharah, but he can't if he can't get any angles, and that's the issue. Doomfist down a hallway. I know who I'm putting my money on. The prize-fighting winning champion, Doomfist with that big gauntlet. It can shatter skyscrapers or something, so I hear. It's very good against that. And I think, if anything, you might try the McCree to flashbang him, but even then, in that small confined space, he never got an angle. So it looked a bit more even once Jane was allowed to play on the defense when they had the pure poke setup, where they sort of concede the high ground and play from farther range. But when LFT was allowed to control the engagement, keep spamming down, I mean, right there on the overtime, they didn't even get to touch the point because you got Barrage on deck and Doomfist cocking a punch for you. You don't even, who's going to walk out, right? It's like, you go touch the point. No, you.
Yeah, and you talked about Jane maybe switching off to the McCree, and that's kind of something I want to touch on real quick, is that we haven't seen many heroes out of these new DPS players from Isurus.
Very true.
Jane played the Zarya and the Soldier, and I think that was it, and we only saw Cougar on Brig. So what are these hero pools looking like for Isurus? Last season, they had Klaus, who plays everything. They had Valen, who was also very good.
Played everything
maybe
as well.
Yeah, right? And maybe that's one of the reasons we're seeing kind of a hesitant look from Isurus, is they're trying to specialize into these few comps because they don't have the flexibility anymore, and it's just not happening.
Well, I mean, I think a good way to describe it is almost seems like our shark friends are swimming upstream, right? It's like they're moving slower, right? Right, Frito?
Definitely, because when you play in a 3-3 mirror, you need to be able to make aggressive plays. And that's frankly not what we've known Isurus to do in the past. They're better at controlling space, winning DPS duels. But if you're not having any space to work with, it doesn't matter how good your DPS are if they're shooting into diva matrices. I mean, I don't think we saw Attack Visor get value in the entirety of Numbani, right? The control and team play is definitely in LFT's favor on both maps thus far.
All right, well, we're going to start talking about some certain players right now. So before we started this game, we highlighted a couple of players that we wanted you guys to watch, and one of them was Fasty. And so far, Paul, I think he's been killing it.
Oh, yeah. Pretty much the only concern we had for this roster was, could Fasty play as mean of a main tank as he did an off tank toward the end of last season? And I think he has exceeded expectations by a large margin. He is winning out that main tank battle every single fight practically, right? It's such good aggressive team play coming out from him right now, and it's a good look for this team.
And so the other thing I wanted to talk about as well was the fact that I think I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think Fasty looks better on this main tank role than he did on the off tank role on that diva.
Yeah.
You know, he had some great bombs, but he seems to be in complete control here. And it's not like he's going up, you know, a tank that's not very well known, Frida.
Yeah, Ravaged, I always liked his Winston a lot better, but also it's hard for me to always give pure credit to the main tank because it's the core of the team that both teams are putting all their resources into. And we have just seen, especially I think with Cougar's Brigitte play, doesn't seem to be as in sync and as demanding of attention as you would want from a DPS, basically one tricking the character. You'd expect a lot bigger performance since we haven't seen Cougar play anything else. So going into these next few maps, I'd hope maybe they stray out of that a bit and look to play more counter goats rather than protect the president, McCree or Soldier on that side, because the synergy between Cougar and Ravaged I don't think is there quite yet. Whereas on the other side, LFT, we're seeing stun shatters come through. We're seeing key frags get picked up by, I'm going to butcher the names. I'll just go for Leviathan, I believe is how you say it. I need to practice that one a bit more. Leviathan. Really good play, I think, all around. Again, just spatial control, isolating targets, and getting value out of their Brigitte, where Cougar, I don't think, is meeting the mark.
Yeah, I think something that's a little eye-opening is the fact that I think we've highlighted almost everyone on LFTOWL except for the supports. Sorry, guys, we'll get to you in a second. But the idea here is that it's been really team-focused, right? It's been hard to find someone that's actually the star player right now, and that's a great thing for now, Paul.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I think if anything, the only thing we could say was weak link was Pizza Lover's connection, right?
Yeah.
His link to the internet. That's the only weak link we can see on this team right now. And even then, they held better and they won the map still.
Yeah.
So you gotta give it to this team. We were concerned coming in. The only other concern we had about this team was how does half Pain and how does half Black Dragons mesh together, right? Well, they've formed a pretty painful dragon if you're playing against them right now. LFTOWL, they're doing a fantastic job of always being on the same page. You can tell these guys have been putting in the work to really synergize.
Well, let's talk about communication just for a little bit, Frito. So do you think that's one of the main things that Isurus is struggling with right now? We did see them not touch the point. The toenails weren't big enough to get overtime to start, but like, is it the communication, or do you think there's something else there they need to work on to kind of get this thing rolling?
When we're looking only through their play. So I don't know what their comms are like. I don't know the practice they've put in. As we said at the pre-show, Jane has played with the team before, so we expected maybe a bit more familiarity, but there's hesitancy there. There's a reluctance to go in aggressive, and that can be a few things. Either they're just not that great in the matchup and in the comps that they're running, or they're busy talking through things right beforehand. It's like whenever you see a Reinhardt stopping for like an extended period of time, you're like, why aren't they going? And you're like checking your watch and everything. It might be because they're dishing out roles and responsibilities and need to do way more planning as if this was a scrim, but it's a real game. This one counts. You got to step it up and pick up the pace and be able to know what you need to be doing ahead of time. And perhaps that's something that's failing them here today, especially in that 3-3, which is so teamwork and trust dependent. It's basically the cornerstone of what makes that comp dominant, and they don't look, quite frankly, very comfortable in that style of play.
Same thing to you, Paul.
Yeah, I think Frito pretty much covered it. Right now, you can, like we touched on earlier, you can really tell that Isurus are so used to playing around their DPS, letting them pop off. And I think we mentioned earlier that it was either in our analyst chat or here on the desk that even last season, Isurus looked a little funky on goats, right? So now that they don't have DPS they can rely on to synergize with their front line, really enable the main tank to pop off. They're losing out the tank battle, they're losing out the DPS battle, and what can supports do when those are both lost, right?
Exactly. And so, Frito, I'm going to give you one opportunity. You did predict Isurus. Are you going to stay on that? Maybe we're going to see a reverse sweep?
I hope so. It's not looking good. Maybe I'll take a rain check on this prediction after the team has put in a bit more practice. Yeah, you're going to feel pretty bad emotionally, I think, after having that huge advantage of them not having a healer on your attack, and then they finish the map with better time than you. I would be pretty struck right now. I think they're stunned from all those Doomfist punches. You don't even touch the objective in rush attempt in order to get there. I don't think it was still looking good with the 3-3 going against Pharah Doom. Why is the enemy team playing DPS when that's what you're known for? I say it looks pretty rough right now. Get Cougar off of the Brigida, and I would like to see them start to enable their DPS like we've all loved to see them do in the rest of last season, and it could look up. So I'll just double down and say if they do that, this will be an interesting series, but if not, I expect more of the same.
So I'm hearing from you that if they kind of like loosen the leash up on the DPS players for Isurus, they maybe even just have a little bit more fun. They could potentially take this back.
Definitely, because Brigida, a lot of people think, well, just just stun the enemy forehead, right? It's not that simple, right? You're basically playing a tank role, which has all of the tactics involved, and the tactics aren't there. So I want to see what Cougar can even play. I don't know much about this player, and if the enemy is willing to run Pharmacy Doomfist against you, do we have a projectile player on this team? Do we have a pharmacy of our own? I don't know. Start pulling it out, because this is desperate times, cause for desperate measures. Break that glass. Let's see some DPS action, for better or for worse. We'd much rather watch a team go out in flames rather than kind of with a whimper, losing on every front.
I love it. I love what you just said there. And I think that's a really great time to throw it back to our casters, Lemon and Hirix. Why don't you guys take it away?
Thanks, Boop, or aka Katrina's stunt double, because I just miss Katrina so much. And I miss all of you at the desk. I think you guys nailed it in terms of what is Cougar and Jane bringing to this team. And I had actually predicted in our little fantasy pool back at BGG that I was predicting Isurus to win. It's hard to deny the stats and their presence in South America, but what a complete turnaround that minus Klaus and minus Valen, that Isurus are just a completely different team.
Absolutely, a massively different team, and in a lot of ways actually kind of fractured, I think, because of it too. But I think looking forward to Hanamura, this is a map where I think they could turn things around a little bit. And the reason why I say that is because they looked good with this roster, or almost this roster. It's just Cougar, the only guy that wasn't there in the, I believe it was the Argentina game show is what it was called. Exactly. Yeah. So they ran Jane in that roster for that tournament. And if I'm not mistaken, he played a little bit of Junkrat actually here. And this is what I was talking about before, where we saw Jane picking up some of those off picks, some of those different setups, looking at, and certainly things that, they're considered off picks, but they're strong on the map. Nepal Village rolling out a May. On this map, maybe playing something like anti-dive with a Junkrat or something like that on that first point. And because, of course, on this first point, if you can set the Junkrat up onto that high ground and maybe play like an anti-dive or something, you're still decently set up for something like a Zen Goats. You can still put that pressure in, and they can't out-heal that poke with a Zen. So it does open up the opportunity to be able to be a little bit more versatile if they play the right thing with the right setup in terms of how they execute it and stuff. Because obviously, if you do wind up playing the Orisa or something with a high ground approach, like that high horse, like they call it, then it might be a little difficult to pull that Junkrat out, because that Orisa will die very quickly if he does go down to contest. But we'll see what Ravage pulls out, because that, I think, is going to make or break what they do wind up putting Jane or Cougar on. This is still, I think, the game to take for LFT, despite the fact that Hanamura, I think, is Isurus's best hope at getting a map in their under their belt. I mean, when we talk about predictions, we're playing a little game behind the scenes. This is the map that I said Isurus could take. This is the map that I think they could take, and this is the one that I put my money on, that if Isurus was going to take one, it was going to be this one. But if LFTOWL looks as good as they have throughout the first two maps, I don't think it's going to go Isurus' way. LFTOWL could very well just close this out right now. Obviously, we'll have a map after this anyways, but they could close this one out with some good play coming from Leviton and Maurice once again, as we've seen already, backed, of course, by guys like Ulay, guys like Fasty. I mean, the entire roster, as Boop had mentioned, has been shouted out, and for good reason. They've just been phenomenal together and very well coordinated.
Cougar has only played Brigida, and Brigida, you think, okay, I just have to hold left click and, hold my shield up a few times. It requires quite a bit of coordination when you're playing Zen Goats to place that Discord onto the main tank and try and burst him down that way. And maybe there's a disconnect between Cougar and Ravage, between Cougar and DDX, as now Isurus on the offense, have DDX on the Ana, and now they're going with some vanilla dive of Jane on the Tracer, Cougar on the Genji.
Yeah, so now they're going to be able to approach Ulay and Maurice, as well as put some pressure onto Pizza Lover. So that backline is going to be a little bit more vulnerable. They might be able to eat them up a little bit, but now they're going to go with that kind of EMP Nanoblade setup. Isurus, I would have liked to have seen you on this on Numbani, but at least you bring it out here.
And this comp is not only vanilla dive, but it's very slippery. So Mures has to really hit his shots, and he's very much focusing on the backline. Reflect almost finishing off Cougar in that sense. And Leviathan, those projectiles might be hard to land when you got a Tracer, or now actually Jane has swapped to the Sombra. But either way, the same thing. Well, when you're close range like that, you can't avoid it. But we'll see if they can still hit their shots with these sort of a slippery and a high mobility comp.
They really need to get their ultimates online to be able to win this first point. I don't think they're going to do it without him. So Jane, Cougar, those are the lines you're looking for. DDX is already ready to go pretty soon here. So it really comes down to Cougar and Jane. They have to get these off, and they have to get it positioned well once they have them to make sure that they find value with the 3 ultimates that they have to find impact with.
Vision is up for the defense, and Isurus have their tanks right around the corner, and it seems like no one's been paying attention to Mures. Although his tanks have been sticking by his side, the Mercy is keeping him healed up. The Nano was just placed there from DDX onto someone from Isurus that are now pushing on top of the point. They've taken out Pizza Lover, and Fasty is also gone, so this is Isurus' chance now to push the point.
I mean, if your Widow isn't hitting shots, then that's effectively a 6v5. I mean, they don't even have to worry about their positioning. They were out in the open, right in the shooting lane for Maurice, but they're going to swap things up now. They're going to go back over to the Doomfist, and Luton going to be dueling out Jane in that Sombra v Sombra matchup. But remember, Isurus does have those 2 ultimates coming online pretty soon, so if they can get that up, and they can find a way to kill off everybody other than Fasty, who's going to be, a big struggle for them, I think, in this next fight, because he could be the person who winds up getting nano boosted, or maybe even Maurice. I think if they can still at least find a 4K here, they can get some kind of momentum to start this next fight and maybe get this point capped.
Look at the ultimates that Isurus have stacked up, though. This could be an easy snowball situation. They're taking their time, though. They want to stay perfectly healed up and assess the positioning from the defense. They've already spotted out Agon, top right, and they have Fasty onto the point. They're going to hop in. Fortunately, there's another pause, though, and are we going to blame Pizza Lover? That would be a really bad time to disconnect because you have Valk.
Yeah, that's an ultimate you need.
Oh no!
That's awful. That's so awful. That's an ult
unlucky.
you absolutely need, because without it, now you just don't have the ability to be elusive and get away from Cougar. If you're able to dodge the EMP from Jane first, then you may be able to survive from the onslaught that Cougar is going to bring, because they do not have the backup of that nano. So he's not going to just straight one-shot you. I mean, he can still get that combo off and still get the kill, but it's going to be a little bit harder when you're able to Valk up into the sky, and he has to be very, very precise with his dash. Now, Pizza Lover, he's going to be back, but it's going to be without Valk, and he's going to be way out of position and not in a position to help his team in a fight that is already unfolding.
Guess who's back? Back again. Pizza's back wizzout a Valk. And that's just how it's going to be. Unlucky. Isurus, but now they have EMP Blade. And now with Pizza Lover coming back as Zen, LFTOWL will just try and burn some time so that they can get, the supports into position. But it's not turning out that great. They have taken out Jane in the middle of that EMP as Cougar goes in with the Blade, and target focus a little out of whack. He did manage to get 1 kill on the Agon. Now chasing after the supports. Could have finished off the Ana there, but we'll take that kill on the Pizza Lover, who was just trying to get back into his match. Isurus, the second take, 5 minutes in. LFTOWL, they need to keep Fasti alive so he can get the primal and try and stall this one out. Beast also has a self-destruct, ready to implode onto the point to make that space. But LFTOWL, they need to keep stalling this one out. They need to shape this time bank.
LFT, they're going to get the kills here. Isurus going to be pushed off, it looks like, as Cougar is going to be taken out. But again, this is a good look for them because they're able to get those 2 points, those 2 ticks, caps out. So now they have a good spot to be able to go back into this fight once they get those next round of ults, or maybe even just play off of a dive again. And they can go ahead and get that last bit of the cap, that last 33% that they need. I mean, they got close there. LFTOWL coming away with a nice bit of ultimates themselves and a little bit of a setup for themselves as well. I think they're set up nicely. That Isurus Gaming, I mean, it's going to take some time for them to generate some lethality here. And in the meantime, LFT just have so many answers.
Isurus just needs to drag out these ultimates, and they already got the EMP out, and they're going to just take this L. Agon self-destructs, and it's taken care of. But I like Isurus' comp for what they're going up against. They have 4 CC heroes, the Lucio, the Ana, the Brigitte, and the McCree. So as soon as Mirrors comes in, they're going to want to focus on executing him before they want to go for a push. At least that's the idea.
So many options. I mean, the thing that we talked about already with LFT was that, you know, they're so good at knowing exactly what to use in every given situation. We saw that on Busan. You know, we saw a continuance of that as well onto the second map of Numbani, but we'll have to see if that can continue here because this is a moment where they absolutely have to have that.
And look, they place the nano to Mirrors because you know he's the one of the target of focus. Slams down onto Ravaged and DDX. This is another one fight on the back of a Meteor Strike from LFTOWL. This is looking so great. Even great nano from Ole, recognizing the target of focus is Mirrors and wants to save his teammate.
But remember, it's always 2 ultimates, right, with LFT. I mean, they never want to go ahead and use more than that because then they lose out momentum, and then it's very easy for Isurus to go ahead and just snowball in onto the point and get that last 33% that they have to get. So now they have a great opportunity to draw out this next fight with Pizza Lover having that Zen ult, that Transcendence, to just kind of make sure that this lasts long enough for the rest of their team to get what they need.
I'm a little curious that Isurus don't want to go on the high ground with that Deadeye, but he's going to be going onto the low ground with it. Has nobody in sight except Agon, who's going to almost Matrix it. Doesn't even land that shot, and that's a pretty important ultimate. And did Isurus just do the thing again?
No, it was the other side. Isurus, Isurus got it, and LFT did the thing. They did the thing, but there's no way that they didn't get down. I mean, there's just no way that you let that happen. That's just a complete brain fart on the side of LFT because they had the capacity to win that fight, or at the very least sustain it, because Pizza Lover, if I'm not mistaken, either had trance or just used trance, so he could have just invuln contested if he wanted to, or at least get everybody into position where they could contest and set up on the point and make that pivot. But a big mistake there. Oof. I mean, a huge mistake. One of the biggest oofs we've ever seen by LFT.
Deadeye, by the way.
Yeah, zone. Yeah, you wonder why they didn't go high ground. Well, it's because if they go low ground, they can just scare LFT away.
You can just force them to C9.
It's those sweaty nightmares that are coming through in this matchup, I guess. Just everybody triggering PTSD or something, and everybody's afraid to jump on point now. But either way, LFT, they're going to be on their attack now, as we'll see Fasti likely switching over to the Reinhardt, I would imagine, and they're going to be maybe actually running the Moira setup here, which is good for Isurus Gaming if they wind up going with this composition, because, you know, here's what they're going to have is going to have, you know, the Ana to be able to just cancel out all those heals, but it's still going to be the issue of, are they going to have the sustain, even with the Ana, to battle against the Moira version, the classic Goats comp that's going to come through for LFT?
See, the Honor Goats in theory counters the Moira Goods because you can just anti-heal it forehead, but you actually have to throw the anti-nade over the shield of Fasti and actually land those grenades, which can be difficult. Hence why some teams actually don't like running the Honor, because it can be difficult to land that anti-nade and it's not as much healing as a Moira can put out. So now they will be moving on in. The anti-heal does hit, and LFTOWL, they step onto the point, and all will just hold this fortress here.
And they don't really have a lot of sustained pressure and poke that they can throw in, so it really has to come off of DDX. He's landed 2 in a row, though.
Oh, and Isurus is starting to build up his charge, and Isurus haven't found a moment of entry, especially with dive. It's very hard to get in here. They have Cougar now into the Tracer. Jane is down, so Isurus have lost some members, including Kaizak, DDX. Is he going to want to use that nano now? Is it a winnable situation? It seems the answer is no. They conserve their ultimates, have Jane go on the soldier, and they're trying to prepare for B.
You better prepare quick, because coming down holding W and sprinting is going to be Pizza Lover and the rest of LFT, and they're going to have a lot of these ultimates coming online very quickly, and you're going to really have to rely on DDX and Kaizak to come through with some massive staying power with these support ults to be able to blast out here and maybe turn this fight around.
It's a nice dive from Isurus. LFTOWL came through mid, and then they dive from behind, and oh, that was a bad, that was a nice boop to get Fasty out of this situation for now, as the Transcendence used here from Kaizak as Isurus hold his defense. They push LFTOWL all the way towards the left side, but losing Cougar, not a great start. Ravaged now will get nano boosted, I believe, as he tries to stay alive, and LFTOWL, it looks like because they're disengaging at this point.
The isolation of Fasty actually was what won that fight for them. I mean, they were able to knock him back, and they managed to push him off just enough so that he was out. And yes, they were able to sustain with the support ult there, but Fasty not being there on the Reinhardt to prevent some of that damage and also just be the tip of the sword, that really hurt him.
Coalescence shooting down through the lane, but it's a self-destruct over the top from Beast. He tries to get back into mech. They've already lost Jane. Cougar has the pulse bomb, but now they don't have a main tank to protect their Tracer player on this defense. But defensive spawns will allow them to get them quicker, but LFT have started the snowball, have started their snowman onto point B, and 5 minutes and 30 is quite a significant time bank as they have rolled through these kills. They're out of ultimates, so Isurus trying to come back here with a Primal Rage to stall this one out. Kaizak close to a Transcendence, but can they even get there fast enough?
Oh, they're working their way to second tick, and they're very close to getting it as they are just getting kill after kill after kill. They are all over the kill feed right now, and really it's just going to be the Moira allowing them to just stay here forever, and they're just permanently topped off.
Oh, a little bit of a spin to win and nothing to spin on, but Ravage will just say hello before point B will be given to LFTOWL with a pretty significant 5-minute time bank over Isurus.
Yeah, that's huge, absolutely, especially given how dominant LFT looked just in general starting this map out. So 5 minutes to 15, and especially knowing that Isurus got their second point by just sheer fact of LFT not jumping onto the point themselves to actually contest in a fight that they probably could have, or even you could dispute that they should have won. That does not bode well for Isurus at all on their attack now as they start things off, and it seems as though they're going to go for that Moira version, that classic goats themselves, and LFT still favoring that Widow and Junkrat setup. And harkening back to the first time we saw them defending with this against Isurus' attack just earlier, where he's not able to get, I think, the value of the Widowmaker that they were looking for, or probably even needed there. He was going for some of these shots. They denied him a couple of times with, pushing him out of position. But even when he had opportunities, he wasn't able to take those opportunities and get value out of them. And we saw the developing of Isurus just being able to just start taking control because that space wasn't being denied by the Widowmaker. If you're not hitting the shots, that space is not denied anymore. So let's see if Mirrors can step things up a little bit here and land the shots that he was unfortunately not able to make the last time we saw him on this.
And I think what Isurus need to do, they're coming out with Goats now with the Moira version of Goats as they go in to swing the hammers to keep Jane and Cougar alive. I'd like to see the statistics on how many times they've been picked first in these Isurus fights. As they step onto the point now, they started to accumulate some percentage points as LFTOWL now they want to re-engage, and with now their dive tanks, they have Olay and Eurus finding that pick on the Moira. This is now the opposite of what you said. This is a very important pick. A ton of healing gone now for this Goats team, but Isurus are walking away with now almost their second tick, and Mura is getting chased off by the dive tanks. I don't know if he can find much after that.
Oh, they have to get these kills now. They already gave up that second tick, and it should be cleanup now for Leviathan. If he can get in there and dish out the damage somehow, he almost goes down, but they should be able to clean things up. Oh, a big Earth Shatter! And that, I think, is actually something committed that shouldn't have been, as they're trying to hang on here in a fight that I don't think that they can win anymore.
Yeah, not sure about the self-destruct from Beast, the Shatter from Ravaged. it seems very panicky of them, and down to their last minute, it might be time to panic because LFTOWL will have 5 minutes to do what they did better. Mir is not liking the Widow, goes to the Doomfist, and this might be the answer to dominating this GOAT squad.
Yeah, he just wants to make sure that he can just toss them around a little bit, that GOAT's comp, and especially because he can get into the fight a little bit quicker than he would be with a Widow, as he's already there.
And the tire comes out from Leviathan over the top, and it's trying to go behind where the supports are, and it gets behind Ravaged. And somehow the Brigida survives. Oh, Agon finishes off the rest with the double boom, self-destruct. Isurus quickly reset down to the last 30 seconds to push this one, and they maybe have some tools to make this work.
Well, Valk ready as well for Pizza Lover, so you're going to see a lot of staying power for LFT. I mean, the sustain that you're going to get out of the Valkyrie just linking up, as well as the damage increase to deal with Isurus and take them down. LFT should be able to rip Isurus apart here.
And you got to protect your Moira, and they get onto the point and use the coalescence to keep them topped up, along with a barrier, a bit of an investment. Jane having that Graviton, waits for the perfect moment for LFT to engage, but it's really only been the 2 tanks, and you got to be worried about them eating it. Graviton's launch only catches 2, but the pin from Ravage trying to finish these guys off. Isurus looking down the barrel of their 3rd tick, but it's been so difficult. Another tire from Leviathan around the corner, and it gets shot down from Jane. Great awareness there as Pizza Lover comes down to the ground from the Mercy, swims over to Leviathan, and LFTOWL have not given up this point. They're building towards ultimates. They have lost it. They will have to prepare for B, but Isurus just barely got away with this.
You have to wonder at what point was Miri's going to actually utilize his ultimate. I mean, just going fists to the ground would have probably given them a little bit better of a chance to hold out there. Now Isurus Gaming have that extra 30 seconds to work with, jumping into the point. They also have Earthshatter ready, and a nice pin onto Agon.
Okay, thankfully he got booped right back into position. Those long pins can be troublesome, and yes, shatters travel upstairs, but can the kills travel up in Isurus Gaming's favor? Self-destruct over the top from Agon. It tries to create some space, and now you got Emergency May from Leviathan, and Isurus are starting to dwindle. It has to be Beast who gets back in the mech. You need to help him out, but no one is kind of playing together from Isurus.
Yeah, they're just scattered around trying to find a way in and make sure that they can get something here, because even if you come away with a couple of ticks, that's a big thing to come away with. You know, now we're going to see, unfortunately, Pizza Lover disconnecting again. This is a big opening here for Isurus Gaming, as you know, that's a big support player just taken right out. Now the only healing that they're going to have on the side of LFT is actually going to be Olay on the Zenyatta until Pizza Lover can come back into the fight. Now he is back into the game, so we should start up here pretty shortly, but it's effectively a 4v6. Olay is very, very low right now, forced to kind of pull back, and he could be taken out by Beast here. If you see Beast's positioning when when we did actually have that pause, he is right in the face of Olay, and he doesn't have any other support. So any damage that comes through is going to be, enough to probably prove lethal to that Zenyatta. So Isurus, I think, are in a great position here to possibly at least take 2 ticks.
And that grab from Jane about to be online, it's all going to be about how they use it. And you got a sound barrier left over from Kaisak. You don't want to use this too early. You don't want to think you want to fight before it's already won. D-Mac on Agon's a good start fast. You can see he's not stalling this one quite yet. Lets them have a second tick and rolls all in. Now Pizza Lover is able to heal him in the back. And Isurus, they're going to use the grab, but it catches absolutely no one. Big mistake. Sound barrier used also in that engagement as May from Leviathan starts to stall things out, buys them a few seconds for Agon to come back in. But this isn't overtime. As long as Isurus stay healed up, it doesn't matter. They should be able to get B here, and LFTOWL with 5 minutes need to do the same thing.
It's tough to say, too, if Pizza Lover disconnecting would have been, if that was truly what allowed Isurus to get that. I mean, it looked like Isurus was pretty solid going into that fight because, they had the dive, a great setup from Beast as well, knowing when to be aggressive and jumping into his face. Got him pretty low before we saw Pizza Lover even disconnecting. So I think, honestly, at this stage, Isurus deserves the points that they have on the board right now. And they did look good. I think the only question would be whether or not LFTOWL should, if LFT would have been able to prevent this situation from even occurring by being able to jump down onto the point in the first attack that came from Isurus. But nonetheless, what happened, and now LFT have to deal with it. And Isurus Gaming, may not be in the driver's seat, especially looking down the barrel of a 5-minute time bank, but they are in a much better position than you would have anticipated, during their first attack. So LFTOWL now with the opportunity to go ahead and come back, and they will, of course, come back with that Moira composition, that 3-3, the GOATs, the traditional GOATs, that standard vanilla version that we saw come out first of all. And Isurus answering back this time potentially on defense with one of their own. So brawling things out. We've seen LFT, they've been consistently better than Isurus with this particular style, but it's typically done with the Zenyatta. So we'll have to see how the Moira matchup changes things, or maybe it doesn't.
Yeah, and DDX has gone away from being on that Ana roll, and knowing that these anti-heals are so hard to land, you'd rather take the risk of playing someone easier like a Moira that can just tank all this healing. But eventually the Moira healing does run out, so that's my only concern in these fights, of which Moira can conserve their healing juice better than the other. And Isurus now prepare their defense. They're playing a little bit close despite both teams running a Lucio. One can get run over the other. Fasty is low, and that could have been an opportunity for Isurus to push in, but you can see they're always trying to play safe.
Watch for the setup here from Leviathan. I mean, they have to get this set up, but he's around the corner, so, typically with this, they're actually going to clean up, it looks like.
Wow, that's some 2 picks there for LFTOWL. We're going to try and engage off of this, and you can see they're focusing on picks. They're not speed boosting to the point quite yet, and now they are. And Mures is about to get that Graviton, so that was a decent stall from Isurus. If they would have played less, having Ravage kind of go down early like that, it was tough to say how they could have fixed that. Both teams playing so close despite having Lucios and despite both of them having the capacity of running each other over.
Yeah, I mean, in that situation, you want to stay around that corner. Ravage was playing that incredibly smart. He was able to hold that corner and deny Lei from being able to get that nasty right click off after the setup comes from Leviathan. So what they did was they got their first pick, and then they got aggressive, opened up the sight line for Lei, and he was able to just drill down Ravage with that next setup.
So it's like, the question is, does Isurus want to use all their ults here, or wait for LFTOWL to use their ults and then come back for a second fight? But they don't have too much time to afford here. As LFTOWL, they start to use their ults, and now a self-destruct left behind from Beast. As LFTOWL, they step onto the point, and they've gotten all the kills they need in their favor. They just need to finish this map to go into extra innings, and they have so much time to spare.
They look like they're going to be able to easily win this one out. A nice little stun coming out there, the Earthshatter from Fasty. Obviously, this guy, he was a flex tank or an off tank, whatever you want to call it, before, but he is certainly showing his flexibility here by not just showing that he can play tank, but he can better one of the really solid tanks from this region. Ravage is a guy that a lot of people talk about as being one of those top tanks in the region specifically. So to see Fasty come out and really just show off his ability to not only look good in these one-on-one situations, but also look really good when he's coordinating with his team. Leviathan really doing a good job on the Brigitte, something that we haven't seen as much of from Cougar and Ravage in terms of, that coordination, that synergy that we expect to see between two players that need to coordinate. They need to be able to set up together. That Brigitte and the Reinhardt, of course, is what I'm talking about. So I think going into this, LFTOWL, they've got 3 minutes 16 on their time bank. They're going to go for that Moira setup. I don't think Isurus can defend this. They are bringing out Cougar on the Widow, which is one of the first things, if not maybe the first. No, they have played a couple of other things with Cougar, but it hasn't been too much outside of the Brigitte. But, we have now seen, I believe, a Genji as well now as a Widowmaker. So a different look. Jane coming out on the Junkrat is something that I mentioned before I would expect to see from Isurus. We haven't seen it up until this point. I don't expect this to be the magical moment where all this kind of works out and they're able to defend for 3 minutes, though. Are they doing this?
Is this happening? It's the teleportation of the Bastion, and debated. I mean, it's funny and all, but you just wasted a few seconds of your attack. There's 3 minutes, so let's not underestimate
that.
They're
fine. They're fine.
No,
they're fine.
Played the game. Okay, we're gonna be playing the Moira goats coming through the door, and Cougar, if he can he's on the high ground, so he can have some sightlines onto the supports coming in, and they have to be aware and make sure their supports are protected.
Oh, they're gonna dive right in now. Still holding back as we see Cougar take that rotation, trying to find some picks into the back line. It's going to be LFT holding out here very aggressively.
And you don't have that pressure from Cougar onto the point. We'll see if they can win it out without him. Oh! Huge bomb there from Jane with the Riptire. That was amazing, and Cougar has been getting some free shots with that.
They don't even come away with a tick at all. I mean, big plays from Jane and Cougar. I mean, staying in that fight. We talk about Isurus all the time, you know, last season being driven by their DPS players, and rightfully so. They had some insane DPS players on their roster, but Jane and Cougar, that was the big question. Are they going to be able to show up in the same capacity? Seems like so far they haven't been able to really, but now they're turning that back around. What a nice shot to start things off with.
Oh, come on, just get her. There's a little bit of duck hunt in the middle of the Coalescence. That would have been big. But meanwhile, Ole gets a triple kill with the Coalescence. So this is LFT answering back from that initial pick. And you lost Fasty, who had the Shatter. This is the only fight LFTOWL need to win. And there it is, the 3-0 for LFTOWL, despite 3 disconnects from one of their supports.
However, now we're seeing a little bit more versatility out of their compositions. We're seeing more different. We're seeing different looks. We're seeing their DPS being played as real DPS, real tried and true DPS. That it's not just, you know, setting up with, you know, a protect the soldier strat or something that we've pretty much only seen that in like GOAT style compositions from that team. So now we're seeing Cougar on DPS picks, and I think that it's looking a lot better than, and then certainly more consistent than what we're getting out of the Brigitte that we've seen from him. I think he looks better on DPS. I think he's meant to play DPS. I just don't think the coordination is quite there with him and Ravage as of yet to be able to really kind of set things up and have the ability to control these fights early on in the way that LFT is able to do. So I think you really got to start throwing some different curveballs, you know, having Jane on a Junkrat, having that Widow pick come out, having Cougar, especially off of Brig and onto some more DPS, you know, some tried and true DPS picks. I think that's their best look so far. Maybe going into this last map, you try pulling something like that out. But again, the second and fourth map, I think is going to be very much in LFT's favor because of the fact that they can play the triple tank, triple support type picks way and far better, far more superior to that of Isurus Gaming.
I just kind of like to ponder on what ifs, you know, just what if. What if Cougar got that shot onto Ole, who is mid Coalescence? Just what if he killed 2 supports, no big deal, because Ole was the one who got the triple kill that allowed LFTOWL to get the point essentially. And you would have cut off all the healings, just maybe. But I do agree that the Widow, when you only have one fight, one shot, one fight, and you bring out a Widow, your Widow's got to be on some next level stuff. And he had a nice pick, but that's just such a risky hero that you don't have any point presence, and you know the other team has mainly played GOATs. Why would we not see like a Sombra? Why would we not see Mirror GOATs? Why would we not see an Ana or anything else but a Widow? I think that was probably not the pick to go with.
It's interesting too, though, because DDX was actually a really pivotal and certainly impactful player in their defense, especially on point A, because when LFT does wind up pulling out that GOATS composition for their A attacks, especially knowing that very often we see them go for the Moira variant, the Ana is actually a very good pick for that. I mean, it's very consistent and very, very solid. So to see them not have that same value in their defense later on, it's, I think, in my opinion, actually kind of questionable. It is the best word, the nicest way I think I could put it. So Isurus Gaming, I think, you know, some of the decisions that they're making, I think I would make a little bit differently, compositionally. You know, looking back even to the first composition, we saw them even roll out, starting things off with a Protect the McCree strat against LFTOWL, who is looking to play tanks. I mean, if you have scrimmed LFT, you would probably know this at this point. But either way, what we're getting right now is LFT looking really solid at tanks. They're looking pretty solid even when they set up, you know, something like a 2-2-2, or even in some cases playing like a triple tank. They look very good because they have the DPS players to back it up. Starting to see some versatility now from Isurus, but I think it's a little too late now. And again, lacking in the coordination, looking like a team that hasn't played together long. And unfortunately, that's exactly what they are.
I feel like the make or break, like, I know we hype up DPS, but I feel like the make or break has been between Jane and Cougar. We've seen time and again that on Numbani, it'd be Cougar who gets picked first. Jane would get picked first on Hanamura as Sombra. It's always been them two making a mistake, not trying to rag on them, but when you're the first person picked, it's most of the time statistically your team's going to lose that fight. So it's like, I'm not sure if it's a question of the tanks trying to do their own thing and relying on Jane and Cougar to take care of themselves, or that they need to play more together and peel more for each other. And this is maybe, like the Desk had said, Isurus used to playing around the DPS of Klaus and Valen from last season. This is why I thought Isurus would have won this series, and this would have been a closer series, is because I thought there was a lot of experience in Ravage and Beast to be able to keep their new DPS players intact. And it feels like LFTOWL, despite Fasting and Agon coming from Pain Gaming and Black Dragons, two different teams that had their own issues, they came together and almost filled each other's voids of what are your issues, what are our strengths, and they've combined it to actually be a very solid playoff contending team.
Something that I think also hurts Isurus a little bit is the fact that this is a season and a meta in this season where, you know, we haven't seen as much of this kind of meta where it's really, really based off of how well you can play with your teammates and how much coordination you have. Obviously, there's a degree to that with every meta that we've seen so far, but I think it's really, really pushed to the forefront with this meta, you know, triple tank, triple support, or any Sombra-based setups as well, because there's a lot of communication that needs to occur. Anything with Brig, that's another, you know, level, another layer to it as well, where, you know, you have to be cohesive. You have to have a lot of synergy between specific players, and given each different composition, that synergy needs to exist between different players. So, you know, LFTOWL, they have the DPS players to play something where they can, you know, be aggressive and pull things off that are flashy. But Isurus Gaming, I think, in past metas where we see, you know, these DPS players able to shine out, it's because often they have the characters to do that. In this meta, there isn't really that same effect because you're playing, you know, setup characters. You're playing Brig, you're playing Sombra, you're playing, you know, something that helps set the team up, not something that's flashy. Isurus Gaming turning that around, and they're instead going to be playing a triple DPS, it looks like, this to start out, as maybe we're going to see some swapping happening as Beast is going back over to D.Va. Yeah, and again, so we're going to see Jane with the opportunity to get flashy, but nobody else can in this setup. So they really have to play off of each other and protect Jane.
It's going to be the Protect the Jane comp, Isurus on their attack, and they're noticing that Mirrors is going to be on the Sombra. It's up to Beast to do that spy check, make sure you check your backline, and having Fasty on a Hammond, that's not something maybe high-level teams play because you don't have as much damage shielding from a Reinhardt or Winston can provide than a Hammond does.
And this is a composition, or a style of a composition, that we actually saw pull out from BGH as well, and something that came out in the World Cup as well, is playing this triple support where you have that soldier as well to just provide a little bit of healing, but mostly just provide that sustained damage pressure where you can get in with flankers because they're primarily worried about Ole on the Soldier 76. They forget about the fact that they have flankers in their backline jumping on their supports, and you can rip down a lot of different compositions with this pulling of this Soldier 76 and not having the extra healing, because you can just be a lot more aggressive and be lethal quicker than the other team.
And these mines are going to come in handy for Fasty, and it's the main road to the payload. You can drop them there, and EMP goes in from Urus, and you got the tac visor. There is nothing that can stop the bullets from Ole, and what is sort of off-roll we've seen from looking for LFTOWL. We got Ole, the Zenyatta playing Soldier, got Agon, the D.Va playing Tracer. I think LFTOWL are having some fun with this.
So they're able to kill off the Soldier, but this is the thing about having a Soldier. You can get back real quick, and they have a lot of sustain in their composition now to be able to make sure that they are able to get him into position, because they have the ability to pull out the sound barrier. They have the ability to pull out that extra armor that's going to come out from Leviton as well on the Brig. So here we're just going to see the engage from Fasty pretty shortly, as they're still kind of clustered up. So he should find value with this pile driver.
See how this one goes. It's not a lot of healing for LFTOWL on this defense. So Isurus, if they can just execute a good fight, this should be easy, but they're taking their time, just trying to get some distance on the payload, and Jane using that Deadeye, not finding much. One of those zoning Deadeyes, no C9 this time, and ultimates starting for Isurus. They use the Transcendence, and Jane hit some nice shots on the Agon.
And this is why you pick up a guy like Jane, is because, you know, if he can land these kind of shots, then all of a sudden this roster move makes a lot of sense. And unfortunately for them, he's going to die out, and the Protect the McCree strat is not going to work out because that's who died.
EMP drop from Isurus as well, and this hasn't turned the fight for LFTOWL quite yet. Pile driver from Fasty still hasn't chosen to use the mines yet, and this could be sealing off some areas that Isurus might have some trouble to get through, and Jane, especially now on the Tracer, has to be careful of those mines. That will one-shot him.
Oh, we'll see Fasty coming back through as well. He's been doing a good job of making sure that he sustains. When he's taking all this pressure, he doesn't have that same ability to just get his health back up because they don't have that dedicated healer. So it has to come from Leviathan and, of course, Pizza Lover to a degree as well. And Fasty is just mitigating the damage rather than having to worry about catching back up and getting those heals to get back into the fight. And he can get back into the fight very quickly, might I add, because he's coming back up off of respawn. Isurus not gonna have a lot of options here offensively.
Now they're Ravage now on the Hammond, so they're realizing that, well, the LFTOWL are just very fast DPS players that maybe he can try and disrupt in that way. Pulse Bomb gonna miss from Jane, and Isurus have been all over the place on this fight. There's not really any moment of focus. It doesn't feel like there's much communication, and now we're in overtime, and Isurus haven't made it to point A.
They might be able to do it here, though, unless Agon can come through and get a Pulse Bomb. Oh, he gets the stick!
Oh, and it's the double kill along with Ravage turning this around, and they got the D-Meg! It's LFTOWL pulling off a miracle here, and Isurus, hopefully they can stall this one out. They're going to use the Transcendence from DDX, although that would have been nice sooner in the fight. And now mines left over from Fasty as he finishes everything off, and on fire, well-deserved. LFTOWL will hold the defense here.
Wow. I mean, I didn't expect it to be that insane for LFT to utilize that strat all the way through on their defense, and Isurus just unable to find a way in. LFT seems like they're just moments away from closing this one out. Are they going to go for something similar here, or are they just going to go straight goats? We haven't seen a lot of really innovative stuff from Isurus Gaming so far, so it wouldn't be surprising to see them actually just lock in and confirm this defensive Zen Goat style. But the question is, how are they going to play it? You know, are they going to operate from that high ground? Are they going to be able to utilize their surroundings? I mean, there was a great video that came out after the World Cup where it was a lot of information from crews about how to run specifically a Goat style composition on this very map against USA. So there's a lot of intel that they could use to understand how to operate on this map and make rotations and make sure that they're getting the most value that they can out of this composition on this particular map, given, you know, all the different areas that you can position from and sit your supports on, and also just gain an advantage of being able to waterfall down on top of the team and be able to determine where you want to take the fight and who you want to take the fight to specifically. Isurus Gaming looks like they are going to be kind of playing into that a little bit. But LFT, they've been really good at these 3-3 strats, so I would imagine their ability to adapt is going to match or surpass Isurus' ability to defend with this style.
And maybe there's a bit of Isurus giving up at this point, you know, having these disconnects. It should have been one fight for them, and LFTOWL kind of playing with their food, having these off-roll supports like Olay playing a DPS and Agon playing a DPS, and you can see Isurus playing very close to the payload, but now they're getting punished. That's Cougar going down again in the start of these fights as Fasty charges on forward, and meanwhile the payload hasn't moved, and that's a bit of a misawareness there from LFTOWL. They go after Beast, and he uses his boosters to just go around the payload instead of get himself to safety.
I think that's actually a defined strat that they went with that, because Muriz has to play, you know, something like the Sombra or something like that, so he can't actually play the Tracer, which is the person who you would typically want to, because he's one of the best Tracers in this region. But either way, LFT coming through on their attack, I mean, they're just one team fight away from being able to close this out. And it does look like they are in the driver's seat in this next fight as they come around the corner and they are able to isolate out a member. And it's Jane going down early.
See, they need to coordinate. If you're going to stun Fasty, you need to execute, get the Discord on him, and keep going after that. And Isurus are giving up way too much space. Agon is seconds away from launching that self-destruct over the top, maybe through the small side. Cougar shields it off, but Isurus are not done yet, but they get shattered. DDX at least is the only one who realized that was coming. Stays on the high ground, and there's no one that can protect this payload from getting to the end. And I cannot believe that I'm about to say Isurus lose 4-0 to LFTOWL, which are Mix of Pain and Black Dragon.